Hey guys, so I'm sure you know that the Feast of Trumpets starts tonight. It starts on the evening of the 4th and lasts until the evening of the 6th. So I wanted to make this video and talk about the watch dates that at least I'm watching for this season. And obviously the Feast of Trumpets is probably the most popular watch period for Christians, and that's basically because uh, a lot of Christians believe that the rapture will happen at the last trumpet, and that's because of these scriptures. For example, in 1 Corinthians 15, where it says we shall all be changed at the last trumpet. But I've talked about this in some of my other videos, that this word for trumpet, it actually also stems from the word meaning trouble. So there are three major troubles. The first one was at the siege of Jerusalem in 70 CE, described in Luke 21. The second time of trouble was during the Dark Ages. And the third time of trouble is the Great Tribulation that hasn't happened yet. And that Great Tribulation, there's an escape to the heavens at that Great Tribulation because there's a nuclear event that no flesh will survive from. And that's just what I'm telling you the texts say. That's what the biblical texts say. So the Egyptian texts also talk about an escape, a rapture type event as well. But I haven't really examined those texts, so I don't really know. I've mostly examined the biblical texts. So it is true, that is what it says, but it's not necessarily true that it would happen on the feast or the appointment of trumpets, because, like I said, this word means trouble. So this scripture very likely is saying that the escape, where we're taken off planet to a safe place for 3.5 years, that will happen at the last tribulation. So this word trouble, it also means tribulation. So we know from Daniel that Daniel 12, Revelation 12, and Matthew 24 all are parallel to each other. And they're all talking about the sign that occurs right before the escape and the tribulation and the war and all of that. Okay, so that's kind of why, I mean, I know most of you guys probably know this. I'm just going over it for some people that maybe don't. That's why a lot of Christians believe the rapture is going to occur on the Feast of Trumpets. But my opinion at this point in 2013, my opinion is that it doesn't, that the texts do not necessarily say that. And the other thing that I wanted to point out is that this is not the true Feast of Trumpets. So I have a video, it's linked below, it's called The True Calendar. And I explain this in my $5 book. It's really easy. You can download it, read it right now if you want to. The link is below. I explain all of this in detail, how the true calendar was to be observed according to the texts themselves, what the biblical text said about how to observe the true calendar. So I don't really have time. I don't want to waste or take up all your time explaining stuff that I've already explained before, but just suffice it to say, if you really want to know, you can go check out those other links. But the true Feast of Trumpets, based on how the biblical texts tell you to observe the feast, it happens October 6th and 7th. So that doesn't mean, in my opinion, that doesn't mean that the Feast of Trumpets on the standard Jewish calendar, that nothing's going to happen, because I think that a lot of things happen on the standard Jewish calendar. So this is definitely still a watch period. I just wanted to let you know that it's not the true calendar. This Friday there is a an interesting, it's just kind of interesting that Moses' second descent lands on this Friday in alignment with the standard Jewish Feast of Trumpets. Some of you guys might look at this and be confused by all of these different colors and the different things in here. There's the green, there's the gray timeline and the orange and the yellow and the purple. I don't want to confuse anybody by going into all this stuff, but just to suffice it to say, I was trying to find the true calendar last year, and so I did all this layering of the biblical timeline, starting on these three fulfillments we had last fall in 2012. And so that's what these are, this yellow timeline and the orange timeline and all of that. That's where it stems from. But since then, I've discovered that the true calendar, along with a few other people as well, that the true calendar is what I've put in here as the color royal blue. So basically, this dark purple color right here is the standard Jewish calendar, and the royal blue is the true calendar that's based on the biblical text. And nothing else really needs to be observed. I mean, unless you're just curious and you want to know you want to find other patterns or something. But for me right now, I'm just looking at this blue and the dark purple. So the thing about Moses' second descent is that we had two major events that happened on Moses' second descent. So the first one was the Pope's resignation on February 11th. It fell on the second descent of Moses on the orange timeline. And then the conclave where they voted for the next Pope happened also on the second descent of Moses right here on the green timeline. So I'm not saying anything is going to happen, but it is a watch date for me. But the next major watch date is September 16th and 17th. And when I say watch, I just mean that. I literally just mean I'm going to be on alert watching that day, meaning I'm going to be paying attention to what's going on in the news. Because what this is about is these three visions that I had in 2011 that have had double fulfillments. So in September and October and December, there were fulfillments of these visions that I had in 2 years in a row. So, for example, in September of 2011, I had this vision that there was stomping and clapping, and it reminded me personally of a battle cry. A couple days later, Occupy Wall Street started in New York City. And then exactly a year later was the Feast of Trumpets. And that Feast of Trumpets, by the way, was also the 1335th day described in Daniel 12:12. It's explained in my book and it's explained in my videos linked below. But the next double fulfillment happened in October. So in October, I saw a vision in 2011 of Jesus was wearing a big heavy coat. He was chopping wood and there was snow everywhere. Then he drew a hurricane shape in the snow, and then he shaped the snow into a volcano. And I also saw a circle with a line through it. The first fulfillment of that vision was with the Connecticut early snow and power outage. So there were over 2.5 million people without power for over a week. It was like 8 days. And on the video, all of the news broadcasts, they showed these people out with these big bulky coats on, and they were out chopping wood because their power was out for a long time and it was cold. And so I thought, okay, that's kind of interesting. But then exactly a year later, Hurricane Sandy hit New York, And instead of 2.5 million, it was 8 million without power. And it also lasted longer. It lasted over a month. So that I thought was really interesting. And the third double fulfillment was in on Christmas Eve. And that was, I saw a vision in 2011 of Jesus crying next to a Christmas tree, a burnt Christmas tree. And then on Christmas Eve, there was a Connecticut house fire where the entire family died in that fire. But then, exactly a year later, there was a fire in New York on Christmas Eve. Only this time it was 7 houses that were on fire, and there were a bunch of firemen that were shot and killed during that event. So some of you will remember last fall in 2012, that's what I was warning about. I had noticed these patterns last fall, and I had said, look, there's these patterns, I don't know, but it seems like a fire will happen on Christmas Eve in New York, and it's going to be worse than this one. Well, sure enough, it did. So what I'm saying now is, since this vision right here showed 3 major, there are 4 things here. There was the power outage first, the hurricane second, and the volcano, and then a circle through a line through it, a circle with a line through it. So the circle was like this. And at the time, I thought the only thing I could think of that this meant was the Earth's axis. But now I realize that it also represents 0. So I don't know what these means, but I do believe that it's a warning about the New York City, Connecticut area. And there have been so many other warnings for New York and Connecticut. And I've talked about this in my other videos. I explain it in my book. These fulfillments in Daniel 9, they all have to do with the One World Trade Center and New York. I mean, just everything. So the I don't have time to explain it in detail in this video, but I have explained it in detail in everything else in my book and in all these other videos that are linked below. So please check it out if you haven't already, because it is true. These scriptures have been exactly fulfilled, exactly. So the only thing left to be fulfilled is this city and the hallowed thing destroyed. Well, we know that the hallowed thing is the One World Trade Center. So by default, the city would have to be New York City. New York City has the largest Jewish population in the world. Second largest Jewish population in the world. Israel obviously is the first, but New York City has the second largest Jewish population in the world. So it really isn't that far-fetched. It's really not as crazy as some people think it is that these scriptures in Daniel are being fulfilled in New York City. So even though a lot of people think, no, nothing could happen in New York again, New York already suffered. I understand that's the way a lot of people think, but it really does look like the warnings are for New York City. And by the way, we did have a confirmation of a treaty right here at the beginning of this 7-year period in 2009. And that was it's in my book, I explain it in my book, but Obama won the Peace Prize for confirming the International Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. He confirmed that and won the Peace Prize because he confirmed that treaty. And that was right here. Right here at the beginning of this final week, what appears to be the final week. Right in the midst of that week, he was in Israel on Nisan 10. So I mean, you can look at that there, but it does look like these are the only things that are left to be fulfilled as far as Daniel's timeline goes. The city and the hallowed thing destroyed, and the Passover and tribute ceasing. So I talk about this, I go into the definitions of these words, what they actually mean. The King James translates it as the sacrifice and the oblation, but the words actually also mean Passover and tribute, and they also can mean thank offering and gift. So we could be talking about something in the springtime, that Passover will cease and the tribute, meaning the One World Trade Center, will cease, and the city and the hallowed thing destroyed. Same thing. I'm New York City has the largest Jewish population, so Passover ceasing would be an event there. Or it could mean also the thank offering and the gift, which might make a reference to Thanksgiving and Christmas. So I don't know, but we're looking at this possible event sometime between now and 2016. So I talk about all of that in my book, and I also talk about that in some of the other videos that are linked below. But anyway, that's why I'm looking at September 16th and 17th as a big watch date, because whatever happens or doesn't happen right here will determine how important it is for us to watch New York City. Do you see what I'm saying? And that's based on these vision fulfillments right here that seem to be warning about New York and Connecticut. And honestly didn't understand this, you guys. When it first started happening, I didn't even get it at all. And I had been doing all that research into the One World Trade Center and all this stuff fulfilled in Daniel and everything, and I still didn't get it. It took me so long to figure this out. And so I really think if something happens here on September 16th or 17th that is a battle cry, that is something resembling a battle cry, I would say get out of there for sure. But like I said, we don't know. I'm just watching this date right now. Then the next watch date for me personally is the true Feast of Trumpets, which is right here. But I wanted to mention this because a lot of people believe that the fulfillment of the sign of trumpets. So let me just go in here to the appointed times really quick. So the word feast, the Jewish feast, there's 7 each year. And the word feast actually means appointed time or appointed sign. So there have been, most Christians believe that there have been 4 fulfillments of these appointed signs. So the first appointed time of Passover was fulfilled with the crucifixion of Jesus on Passover. That was an appointed time that the Jews had observed that day for a couple thousand years before Jesus was actually crucified on that day. So it was fulfilled on that. First fruits was fulfilled also with Jesus. He was the first fruits out of the Israel lineage, Matthew 1. He also represented the bread, so the appointed time of unleavened bread, because he was the bread of life. And then Pentecost was fulfilled through the baptism of the disciples' baptism with the Holy Ghost. So that's all according to the text, and most Christians will agree with that and say, yeah, they'll have a general agreement with that the first 4 appointed times have been fulfilled. But what most Christians don't know is that the time of the trumpets has also been fulfilled. The appointed sign of the trumpets was fulfilled in 2012. It was fulfilled October 16th, 2012. I explain this in my book, and I also explain it in a video that's linked below. So let me just go down here. So October 16th, 2012 This celestial configuration occurred in the sky. It's very rare. The last time it happened was in 1570, and the next time it happens is in 2454. So this date that this configuration right here happened in the sky was exactly the true Feast of Trumpets. And I explain that. I have another video on the true calendar. It's linked below, and I explain it in detail in my book as well. But the true Feast of Trumpets, using the biblical instruction book on how to observe those appointed times, the true Feast of Trumpets was October 16th, 2012, and that is when Revelation 12:1 through 5 was fulfilled. It was the sign of Revelation 12:1 through 5. A sign appeared in the heavens, this exact configuration. It tells us in Revelation that it is a sign, and it appeared in the sky just like that, and it appeared right on the true Feast of Trumpets. So this was literally the fulfillment of the sign, the appointed sign of trumpets. Do you see what I'm saying? So this means that we have 5 feasts that have already been fulfilled. We have 5 appointed times that have already been fulfilled. And the next fulfillment that at least I'm looking for is the fulfillment of atonement. So that falls on Columbus Day this year, which is really interesting because you can see that it's October 14th, which is right when I had this vision in 2011 of the 4 things: the power outage, the hurricane, the volcano, and the circle with the line through it. So I don't know what all of this means, but it's starting to form a picture. So the fact that atonement occurs right at the same time of the year that I saw that vision, and also Sukkot ends around the same time that the vision was fulfilled, I just think that's interesting. So I saw the vision October 13th, or I uploaded it to YouTube October 13th. It's still there in my playlist, Proof the Visions Come True. I uploaded it to YouTube October 13th, and it was fulfilled October 29th. And then there was a double fulfillment again the next year. So right here, I saw it, and then it was fulfilled right here. So this, to me, is a huge watch period right here from the 13th to the 29th of October. I guess is what I'm saying with that. Because these two appointments right here, Atonement and Sukkot, are the last appointments that need to be fulfilled. These are the very last ones, Atonement and Sukkot. So I don't know. That's a really strong watch period for me. And I just wanted to mention one other thing about trumpets. So, you know that scripture that says it will happen on a day you think not. Well, there's this widespread, or I guess I should call it a growing trend among Christians to watch the Feast of Trumpets as the possible rapture date. But it says it will happen on a day you think not. So it's not going to happen on the day you think it's going to happen. So what's the day all the Christians think it's going to happen? Feast of Trumpets. So it's not going to happen then. What was the fulfillment of the sign of trumpets? It was last year. It was Revelation 12:1 through 5. It was the sign of Revelation 12:1 through 5 that appeared in the heavens. That was the fulfillment of the sign of trumpets. Do you see what I mean? The Feast of Trumpets. Feast means appointed sign. So, literally, last year on the Feast of Trumpets, the true Feast of Trumpets, 2012, October 16th, 2012, that was the literal fulfillment. That was the literal appointed sign of trumpets. And this is the next Feast of Trumpets after that, 12 months later. So I just think it's interesting. Maybe it means nothing, but remember what Jesus said about the 12. He said at midnight, he said, they will all go forth to meet the bridegroom, but he will be delayed and he will return at midnight. Midnight is 12. There are 12 months from last year's sign on the Feast of Trumpets until this year's Feast of Trumpets. So I don't know, but I just thought that was really interesting and I thought I'd mention it. So really this is, for me, the strongest watch period is in October. And then the next watch period after that is on Christmas Eve. So down here. So again, that's based on these fulfillments right here. But I guess the thing that I wanted to point out to you guys before I let you go is this thing right here with Hurricane Sandy. And there's one other point that seems to confirm all of this, that seems to confirm that it has something to do with New York, that that's what the warning is about, that ties in with my vision fulfillments and also with the biblical text. And that is what's in Genesis. So I have it here in my book as well. And it's the last, very, very last section in my book. The end thereof shall be with a flood, because it tells us in Daniel that this desolation that occurs, let me just go back, this desolation that occurs in the midst of the week, the city is and the hallowed thing are destroyed, and the Passover and tribute ceases, or the thank offering and the gift ceases. It's sometime between now and 2016 is what it appears to be, according to all these fulfillments, and it's all connected to New York. So sometime between now and 2016. But then when we look at Genesis, we get this other pattern. It talks about how Noah was born, and Lamech, his father, lived 595 years until he died at age 777. And Noah was 600 years old when the flood came. The only question we have in our mind is, was Noah starting his 600th year when the flood came, or was he ending his 600th year when the flood came? We don't know. So this could be either 4 or 5 years from the 777 until the flood. So what we have is, we have since 2001, when September 11th happened, which seems to have everything to do with this. The stock market crashed on the Feast of Trumpets, the standard Feast of Trumpets, September 17th, 2001, a sabbatical year. 7 years later, on the next sabbatical year, again on the standard Feast of Trumpets, there was a 777-point drop in the stock market. 4 years later, Hurricane Sandy hit New York, and 5 years later is this year, October of 2013. So was this the fulfillment of the flood, or will it be something else happening in 2013? I don't know, but again, in the visions that I saw, it showed 4 things: the power outage right here in 2011, the hurricane 2012, and a volcano. So are we talking about 2013? Are we talking about the Canary Island volcano? I don't know. But I'm just looking at this and trying to understand it. So that's my watch period for me. That's what I'm watching in this season, and I wanted to share that with you guys. And I think that's pretty much it. So I will let you go. I hope that you're doing well. and I will talk to you soon. Okay, bye bye.